Okay, time for a real quick and dirty, it's probably going to take forever, video on experts versus experts. The argumentation between qualified, certified architects, engineers, and physicists. There's a whole drama going on in the background that most people online, or especially in real life, don't even know what's going on. And there are two ways I've captured it. The first one was a file that I couldn't find earlier and I found now, which is right here. There's a project due diligence started by this guy who just passed away, Roland Angle, and he was on the he signed up with 9/11 AE 9/11 Truth, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and he put this timeline. So the buildings collapse. I'm gonna go through it really quick. Buildings collapse, the site cleanup starts, FEMA investigation starts. Bazant submits his paper on the reasons for the collapse, which was the mathematical model. A small contingent of volunteers was permitted to examine the steel and salvage yards in what was described as a walkthrough, so not actually studied the forensic evidence. Underground fires at the World Trade Center site finally extinguished in December. Then the cleanup was finally complete in mid-2002, when FEMA released its report with a preliminary collapse hypothesis. Then in September 2002, an IST was authorized by Congress to investigate the three high-rise collapses, World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. The commission was created in between and before NIST's World Trade Center Twin Tower report was released. That same year, in 2005, Stephen Jones published his paper saying it appears the buildings were demolished based on reports of molten metal in the debris rubble and observations of the collapse of World Trade Center 7. Then Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth was founded by Richard Gage. And then the next year, the Twin Towers core column data, the blueprints, were released via Freedom of Information Act. I thought they were leaked. I guess that's how they got them. Then 2008, the World Trade Center draft report for public comment was released, and then was confronted with the fact that their World Trade Center 7 acceleration calculation was wrong and was corrected to reflect actual free fall as part of its collapse. So it was then their final report was released, 2008, acknowledged the free fall, but doesn't consider or explain the implications of that. Also, end of 2008, the descent rate of the North Tower was measured and determined to have a constant or continuous acceleration with no deceleration observed as predicted by Bazant. The missing jolt paper was published in the Journal of 9/11 Studies, which we'll go into more details, but there's multiple journals to get it to be peer-reviewed, and a lot of the alternative hypotheses for the World Trade Center destructions that are not mainstream or institution are in this Journal of 9/11 Studies, and they're all credentialed experts that are submitting these papers for their peer review, but they're still counted as conspiracy, even though they're following all the standard journalistic practices for rigor and scientific accuracy. So in that journal, they challenged Bazant's Twin Tower collapse propagation hypothesis. And then in April 2009, scientists published a paper. This was an international paper. This wasn't related to AE 9/11 Truth. They said they found nanothermite in all 4 samples of the World Trade Center dust they tested. Pretty crazy. 2010, structural engineer Ron Brockman asked NIST for a copy of the structural calculations that substantiate their theory on why World Trade Center 7 collapsed, which has to do a lot with column 79 failing in a very odd way. So they said they won't release the data as it might jeopardize public safety in 2010. Then Bazant published a paper in the same journal he published the other one, claims there was deceleration in the North Tower collapse, but it was just too small to be captured and thus observed on video. You got your CRT old school screen, everything's fuzzy because it's so huge and because the forces are so great. Okay, yeah, math would dictate there's a jolt or deceleration, but you just can't tell with 30 frames per second video. Tony Zambodi and Richard John submitted a discussion paper to the journal showing the fatal errors in his paper due to incorrect inputs. And when that was corrected, it shows the opposite of what Bazant had claimed. They didn't dispute the mathematics. They disputed the inputs he used, which didn't have justification in their eyes. And then, end of 2011, a large number of World Trade Center 7 drawings were released via Freedom of Information Act. And in those drawings, it shows that the World Trade Center report omitted, distorted, or ignored pertinent structural features, which, if considered, would have precluded their collapse initiation hypothesis. Mainly, they thought that the girder fell off. It was a horizontal one attached to 79. In their simulation, there were no bolts, even though the drawings prove there were bolts. Structural engineer Ron Brockman writes to NST asking for explanations concerning all these emissions distortions and ignoring the structural features. So they do issue a correction, but only addressing one thing, which was the seat width under that girder, which they said was 11 inches, and they updated it to be 12 inches. They don't address the omitted stiffeners and lateral support beams. So looks like insurance versus World Trade Center 7 properties negligence lawsuits are heard by courts in Manhattan. The ASCE Journal of Engineering Mechanics chief editors reject Zambodi and John's paper, which is a counter paper, on the grounds that it's out of scope, even though it totally was within scope. And the whole point of peer review is to have other credentialed experts submit their critiques, because those can be critiques. That's the whole point of the journal. NIST admits in an email that their spokesperson that they left off the stiffeners on the girder, saying they weren't necessary, which they totally were. That doesn't even make any sense, which we'll have a whole other video on World Trade Center 7 collapse hypothesis that is just crazy. We don't need to worry about this court stuff. Attorney writes to the Department of Commerce, which is the parent of NIST, to redo their analysis, including the omitted girder stiffeners and lateral support beams. And that's in December 2013. In April 2014, they respond saying they looked at assertions and found no reason to redo their analysis, and they stand behind their work. So they're refusing to update based on new information. They claim that it was not needed in their analysis. Lateral support beams, I mean, they're kind of important to their analysis. So, mid-2015, A 9/11 Truth funds University of Alaska Fairbanks civil engineering professor Leroy Holsey to perform a finite element study of World Trade Center 7 to determine if it could have collapsed due to fire, and if not, answer what would need to happen to bring it down in the way we observed. He actually rejected that the first couple times. He's like, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. They kept asking him, because of his credentials, and finally he relented. Expert analysis and reports by Arup members for Aegis Insurance and its negligence lawsuit against World Trade Center 7 properties became known to the public at the end of 2015. At the beginning of 2016, it's shown by independent researchers to be an error, with 13th floor girder having blah, blah, blah. It showed that the NIST claim here could not be possible, so it conflicted with NIST's results. NIST refused to provide the calculations from their analysis, again saying the release of information might jeopardize public safety. So basically, we're getting more information about the structure, specifically around their collapse reason. And it's just, with each new information coming in, it makes less and less sense, and they're not updating it, and they're not releasing the information they used to generate their collapse. Super sus. No, whether it fell or was demolished, that's really not good practice. Then the Waldinger Associates report was made publicly available in mid-2016. It also argues that these details have to do with the World Trade Center collapse. This report depends on a thermal analysis, which they do not release on divulge the details of. interestingly, the report was never put in the court record. Basically, their theory didn't align at all with the official theory. So we got all kinds of discrepancies going on. And then in 2017, Leroy Halsey, the guy in Alaska, gives a presentation showing the NIST World Trade Center 7 collapse initiation hypothesis is impossible. This is only goes up to 2017. I did my own investigation here into who did what when. So as you can see, the guy behind this Project Due Diligence is other engineers reaching out to other engineers. As you may have heard in my last video, this is really between experts. This isn't not trying to convince you or me. This is, hey, as an expert, I encountered this information that contradicts the official story, and I'm only going to communicate this to you because you are in the know. And he passed away, sadly, very recently. But he did these very shadow banned but extremely detailed, almost 2-hour-long videos on the World Trade Center towers and the Building 7s, basically a critique on the official story. Obviously very convincing to me as a layperson. I haven't heard anything that's debunked his analysis. And I was able to download the PowerPoint he used. And he was specifically addressing engineers, but I was able to pretty much follow it. So before all that, I downloaded all the papers because a lot of these arguments aren't just forum chats like us, non-experts. They submit these papers officially in journals, and they're 50 pages plus, lots of math that you wouldn't understand. So what I have here color-coded, these two guys are like the main people supporting the official story. And here are their credentials, PhD. Then these are the first guys to kind of question it. Stephen Jones, Kevin Ryan, Underwriters Laboratories. He doesn't have a PhD, but he worked on certifying the steel that was used in the World Trade Center. So he knew that the whole heat failure theories didn't make sense. And he lost his job speaking out about it. Now these guys, hey, Rosie, I'm doing a video. Excuse my toddler. She's complaining for no reason. We have these experts. Here's a PhD in mechanical engineering with an expertise in structural dynamics and impact mechanics. Mechanical engineer. The reason why they're highlighted is because as we go down the list of official papers, you'll see who said what and submitted it where. This is just a rundown of the names and their credentials. David Chandler, a physics teacher, he's the one that did the analysis on the free fall, which NIST corrected based on his correction. Jonathan Cole, he's a professional civil engineer, experienced with structural engineering, and he has a YouTube called Physics and Reason. Let me pull that up really quick. Physics and Reason. You got to check this out. Physics and Reason. And of course, it's shadow banned. So it's really hard to find, but I'm subscribed to him. Let's see, HIJKLMNOP, Physics and Reason. Oh, because it's all one word, maybe that's why. But yeah, he does full experimental videos on all the claims, counterclaims. Even one of them's titled Expert versus Expert. Experiments are the arbitrator of competing hypotheses, force behind the motion, thermite debate. Very thorough, very experienced. And he does the papers. So let's go to the timeline here. So I might have to expand this or shrink this, but I downloaded the PDFs of all these papers too, and have been using AI to summarize them so I know what the heck's going on. So I just highlighted here which journal is being used, but I guess that's less important. What matters here is who wrote it and what they're saying. So going from top down, we're going from oldest to newest. We have the dates they're submitted, the title of the paper, who authored it, and then as you can see later on, we got a lot more back and forth here. And there was a point in 2008 where Kevin Ryan and Stephen Jones elucidated 14 points in agreement with the official government report. So it's not that they're saying it's all nonsense. We only have specific arguments. Here's the missing jolt paper, the simple refutation of the NIST Besant collapse hypothesis. And, here's some Besant was, countered in 2011 saying, why is it, we think it's smooth. Here's a problem here where Tony Zambodi submitted a paper, but the journal refused to correct their fraudulent papers. This was in May 2011. So there's like institutional pushback, not logical pushback, not content of the argument being addressed and factored in, just proven, which is how science should be. You don't just withhold critiques on papers. And you can if they're out of scope, but this isn't out of scope. It's directly addressing the claims of the arguments. And they're not these papers. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's just do this one here. Let's do 2013. I put them all in their own years here. So here's peer-reviewed technical literature. This is his summary. Let's see. These are pretty. These are way beyond what I would, would be able to parse out. But they're extremely detailed, footnoted to death. Like, these are extremely technical. This isn't just like, college kids trying to be edgy, bro, or like, that's one area where you could critique. There's then the other area of like, you're totally deluded flat earther, like laser beams from space. No, there's an actual unresolved discussion going around this. And it's not about, was it column 50 or 60? Like, the disagreement is on was the resistance artificially removed or not, to explain the collapse dynamics. And so looks like the most recent one I have here is from 2023. David Chandler and Tony Zambodi, instantaneous free fall, World Trade Center building 7 and NIST's attempt to hide it. Then here in 2022, Besant wrote one where he's trying to write a counter argument. So spontaneous collapse mechanism and collapses in general. So he does his math. We've seen this a million times, and this is like barely changed since 2001. He's comparing free fall versus the model. A lot of this ignores the specific dynamics. But you have, let's see what 2023 looks like here. So this is just in the Journal of 9/11 Studies. This was his corrected schematic of the collapse process. Compares it to observations. All of this is above my head, but the good news is you could take these PDFs, put them in GPT-03, reasoning models. They can give you a summary, and you could even just do, like, since there's so much back and forth, do the pro and the con, and then ask the AI which one makes more sense and why. And so that can help you distill the arguments. But yeah, I just wanted to say that there's a lot of argumentation, a lot of ambiguity. As far as I can tell, the science is far from settled. You can be intelligent and land on one or the other side of this very complex discussion. And all of this is before going into the political. This is just in the destruction of the towers. And my interest is, I just want to know. I don't care what the answer is. I just want to understand to me, there's too many anomalies that fit better with the demolition hypothesis, and I can't understand the gravity-driven. I've read these, not all of these, but I've read all the ones that appear to have some sort of hope to either resolve the anomaly or explain the steps of the failures. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say in this video. Thanks for watching.